Good morning. Today is January 9th, 2020. This is Clear Passage Prayer Line. The title of the message today is Thy Will Be Done, Thy Will Be Done. And if I was going to paraphrase it, I would call it God is in control. And yesterday we have been talking to people. Well, you've been talking and seeing where people, you have a question, you would go, well, God has let you have free will, and it just occurred. Hold on one second. Hold on. Lori, did you still want to sing your song? Is she on? All right. If you do at the end, I just don't want to leave that out because it just came back up again. So at the end, if you want to, you can. Okay, so Thy will be done. And just to let you guys know, when we're on the call, I'm listening for the Lord. So I'm not doing a based on opinion, but I'm listening for God, the move of God and the anointing. So that's why sometimes you see me go back and forth because I'm trying to make sure I'm getting it. I'm hearing Him. So two people, Jonah and Paul. When you guys we've been talking a lot about making room and stepping out, and we talked about Lot being in Sodom and Gomorrah, and we talked about a bunch of things where people were struggling with obedience to the Lord, and that's what was mentioned in the prayer earlier, obedience to God. And the message is the key concept today is free will does not mean it happens. That just reveals your intention. God does give us free will, but we don't have control. We have free will, and some will say, I want to do this, I want to do that, and it's so noted. But then if the will of God is super right and He has intervened on more than one occasion in the lives of those called, He has intervened on more than one occasion in the lives of those called to make sure to redirect them and get them on path. Two people that had a very strong call, very strong interruption, very strong, I'm going to do it my way. And the Lord goes, nope, you're going to do it my way. And their intent, their free will is to do their thing. And the Lord intervened and said, nope, you're going to do my thing. And even in the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus submitted. He had a different will. His free will would have been to not go to Calvary, but he submitted his free will to the will of the Lord, and that's how he got to Calvary, because it wasn't something, he was not looking forward to it. He said it. He said that there's another way, if this cup can pass from me, but he submitted to that. So what I'm saying is that when we've been talking about the perfect plans of God, how God has been moving and doing the things that He and moving in our lives and setting up these symphonic thing, we might looks like a coincidence, but these symphonic coordinations of events when I say symphonic coordinations of events, like unexplainable. And they're not a coincidence, but they're incidences that happen divine. If there was a word there was a word that would blend in an incident and a divine coordination of an incident, that would be the word. Because it's not a coincidence, but it's a divine coordination. Something happened that God put all the pieces together, and they were always coming together. They were never a surprise, and even though we didn't see it, it has always been happening. When I mentioned to you about a couple of days ago about Maxine Waters, and then the guy I was working with in that nonprofit organization was actually my first cousin, which I actually never knew it, and we just came together by someone else telling us to work together, and then sat there and figured out that we were actually related, not a little related, really related, and that was an amazing thing. So what it means is God has always been operating around you and moving things around, and you're not by happenstance in the position you're there. And so free will is when you go, the Lord allow you to, Eve, that was free will. She was seduced and manipulated to biting the apple but she still had a choice. She still had a choice, but Adam really knew what the choices were. He went with his wife. Adam knew not to eat the apple, and he did. But in these instances, when we're talking about Jonah and we're talking about Paul, Paul was not so much trying to be disobedient. Paul just had it in his mind to kill Christians. He thought they were sinning against God, and he was doing what he thought was the right thing at the time. Jonah straight up heard from God. Straight up, Lord said, go here. Jonah was like, gotcha. No. He said, I heard you. No, I'm not doing it. That's what Jonah was. Out and out. I'm not going there. I'm not doing it. I don't like them. I've been telling them they didn't do what I told them before. I don't like them people, and I'm not going to tell them again. They had a whole conversation. And so God is a parent. Parent. He is a parent for real, and He will just meet you around the corner, meet you wherever you're going to be. Were you acting in disobedience? You gonna run away down the street? I'll meet you over there. Go ahead and start running, Jonah. I will see you in a few minutes. As soon as I finish my coffee, I'll be over there to handle your situation. Jonah didn't get away, but Jonah was doing something. Jonah was actively running away from the will of God, unapologetically saying, no, I'm not doing it, not dealing with those people. I don't like them. I don't care that you like them. I don't want to be there. That was his free will. And then there's God's will. There's your will, and then there's God's will. So your free will is, okay, it's so noted, you don't want to go. So noted, you don't want to do it. But then, okay, here we're going to bump it up. You said you're not going to do it. Okay, let's write that down too. Ha, ha, ha. We'll see who's going to do what. So in line with things happening, God already has some kind of a way. And I've been trying to figure this out, and this is like a running joke but between he and I, because he always knows when people say the Lord told me something, I always ask him, okay, I always ask him, now how did he say it? Did he say it fast or slow? Where was you standing? Did he say my whole name? Did he say half my name? And I always want to know because this is phenomenal how it's amazing how he does this. And I know that he does it. When I say it's amazing how he does it, I can't count the miracles that happen in a 24-hour section. I can't. If so much happens, God will give me an impression this is getting ready to happen, and it'll be so noted. That's a word you got to write down on your paper, so noted. I write it down, and sure enough, I'm walking around doing my other things, forgot that he already said that, and then boom, there it shows up. It shows up. And so he takes your desires, and now I'll give you an example. I think I maybe have mentioned this before. Idessa is Minister Crystal Bowden's grandbaby, which I have, which I love forever. But Idessa was I was eating some food, and she was sitting there, and she said something to me that was like, and I didn't understand what she said. It sounded to me like blah blah blah. It's just like she said, it was words, but it wasn't anything I could understand. And so then someone said, she said, let me blow your food, because I was eating, and she said, let me blow your food. And so I said, okay. So I put my fork over there, and she went, just like, I mean, it was like a second. I said, oh, was that it? Okay, thank you. And she was blowing my food. That's how we are when we are dealing with God. He'll say, you say, Lord, I want 2 eggs and some bacon. I want something small. You say something out of the bigness of what you think it is. And the Lord was like, okay, I'm going to really hook you up because you asked for this, but I'm going to give you that, which takes your stuff and blows it straight out the water and pushes it in a whole nother thing. So just like when I was saying, Odessa was blowing on my food, thinking she was doing something. She was because she was blowing so I wouldn't burn my mouth, because that's what everybody does for her. So she was doing that for me, and so she was blowing so you think you're doing something for God, but you know when He finishes, He's gonna say, "Oh my goodness, let me thank you. I'll take that and let me blow it up into something else. Let me make it into something." And it's the thought. I mean, this is the same way you look at her, go, "Oh my God, that's so cute." And so that's how God looks at us when we try to do something. He goes, "Oh, that's so cute. My babies are trying to do something. Let me help them." And then He puts the super duper behind your efforts and blows it up, and then adds stuff that you didn't even know to ask for. You didn't even know to ask for the carriage and the 6 horses and the this and the that, like Cinderella. You didn't know to ask for that. You'd have been happy just to get invited, but He's hooking you up. And so God will do He supersizes, but when you lead, you release your will to His, and if you are in coordination with what He's doing, it's a phenomenal thing. So He's in charge. He can coordinate. Let me put it like this. It's the wrong thing for me to say He can coordinate. He has already coordinated the situation. Because what I said was He can coordinate, like He's working alongside of you. The truth of the matter is He's already coordinated it, and you happen to be in His arena. You're operating, but He already got all the exits. He got the roads blocked. He already knows where everything's going to happen. He can control everything in your. Okay, let me put it like this. He can control everything in your environment to the point that you can run and do whatever, but you're still His child. This is still His earth realm. This is still His earth. He's still in charge. So if you're free, just think about it. When the enemy tries to convince you that you can go and do what you want to do, you're just being tested. You're not in control. You can go down there and do that thing. You can go down and do that thing. But by the grace of God, thank God, sometimes something stops us. Sometimes mama's prayers stop us. Sometimes your situations stop us, but God intervenes and says, "Nope, don't go to the left, go to the right." And some children are bent on going to the left. They're bent on doing their will. So there's a hard stop for some of them. What we're talking about here, Jonah and Paul, definition of a hard stop. No, you will not go any further. You will do what I asked you to do, and you're getting ready to do it now. So sometimes free will is relevant to if God's going to allow you to go in your free will. And most of the time, by the grace and mercy of God, He intervenes. You don't want your free will to override God's will for your life. Disobedience, there's things that can come into your system, and there's strongholds that can come into your mind and mess up your call. Mess up what God has told you to do, because you get waylaid with sin. Sometimes and we've seen ministers do it. Many times you've seen ministers get called home early because they was caught up in something, and the Lord was keeping them to make sure they got to heaven. So He cut it short. You want to finish your race completely. You want to do what God will have you to do, and that's why we have to be watchful. It doesn't matter how high up you go. It doesn't matter how far you go. Always be humble and watchful. Lord, am I doing? Don't ever get in so caught up in sin, seeing something happen that you think is commonplace, that miracles are following you around, that you think is commonplace, that people are being healed in your ministry, or your prayers are being answered. Never be common with God. He doesn't have to do it. And it's an honor every time He shows up. It's an awestruck, amazing situation that God shows up in your life. He doesn't have to. As people go almost their whole lifetime and maybe get 1 or 2 invitations to follow Christ, and they never hear from Him again. They're sitting in absolute silence. And then there's some people that God talks to them all the time. It just walks with them and talks with them and tells them that they're His own all the time. So it's a blessing to be in the company of God. It's a blessing that He bothers you. It's a blessing that He shows up and talks to you. So it's an amazing thing. But what's more amazing is how He coordinates things in this earth realm to the point that it was already going to happen. It was always already going to happen. Always going to happen. You were always going to make it to heaven. You were always going to get in. You were always going to be where you are. It was always going to happen. And the thing is, you say, well, why do we have free will? Free will is to reveal your intention. That's all. If I let you go, what would you do by yourself? Okay, I want to see what choices you would make, because that shows your heart. And if you voluntarily, freely bring, he said, bring all your tithes and offerings, voluntarily go into the places that ask him. So he gives you your free will, and then you turn around and say, Lord, and you give your will back to him. You surrender your free will back to him. So he gives you your free will. That's your freedom. That's your free will. Not that you will be freely moving all the time, because you will not. He's in control of your life. Don't be mistaken. If he's picked you, he's called you, he's on you. But he gives you free will. And what the saint of God does, what that child of God does, is, Father, thank you for my free will, but I surrender my free will to your will. That's love. That's, I'm giving you this, and then you go, I'm giving it back to you. Lord, if you give me a child, I will dedicate that child to you. If you give me a house, we'll have Bible study in the house. If you give me a car, this is how people pray all the time. You give me a car, I will go to church. If you give me this, I'll do that. If you get me off of this sick bed, I will serve you. Cut deals all the time. But the one real deal is he gives you free will. Not free, not control, not universal access. You don't have the master keys to nothing. He gives you free will to do your thing. But then the child of God, the one that's going to be successful with God, will take that free will and submit it back to him at the throne, put it at the foot of the altar and say, not my will, but thy will be done. That's what Jesus did. Not my will, but thy will be done. That's your word. When he gives you your free will, not my will, but thy will be done. That's your automatic answer that will win, that will get you in the winner's circle, that will get you all the bells and whistles, that will get you everything of winning, is when he gives you your free will. Your conversation is, not my will, thy will be done. Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. And you start just praising him and kissing him and telling him who he is, and he will start blessing you out your ears. You will not even be able to contain the blessing. If that thing he gave you, which is free will, you give it back. Say, oh, no, thank you, Lord. And then you say, Father, this is what I would like, but plan it however you want it to go, whatever you see it being. And you know what he'll do? He'll consider your will and take your little bit of will, your little bit of discussion, your little bit of stuff that you asking for, that little change stuff you asking for, because you can't even ask like God could do. You don't even know. You can't ask at the capacity that he can bless you. His blessing is always going to exceed your ability to even formulate it. It says, eyes have not seen or ears have heard what he has for plans for the children. You can't even ask. Okay, if you're trying to guess, he's got a box. He says, this is your blessing. And then you had to sit there and figure it out. You couldn't even imagine what's in that box. You couldn't even imagine what he's got for you. You haven't seen it, heard it, smelled it, looked at it, touched it, don't know nothing about it. It'll be a wow moment, because he knows how to hook you up with a wow moment. You'll be like, oh my goodness, I didn't even imagine that you could do this, and because it's a surprise. So you couldn't even ask for the blessing, because you don't know to ask for it. So the best thing to do, instead of trying to think and figure it out and get all in the way and try to control, surrender. Lord, fix it, do it, whatever you want me to have. This is what I'm thinking about, but you know what? I'm going to hand it over to you, because even though I want something looking like this, you got something better, do it. Always in your prayers, if you got something better than what I asked for, it's something you want to add to it, something you want to change, add that to the end of all your prayers. If you got something better than what I have asked for, you want to add to it, you want to change it, whatever you want to do, Lord, it's yours. I'm just voicing a little bit of what I'm thinking, but because we talk, we love each other, and we're friends. So whatever you think, if you got something better, I always tell the Lord, this is how you don't miss a blessing. You ask for something in great detail. And then at the end say, but if you got something better, I'm putting it in your hands. If you can conceive, when I say he can take your same thing and then blow it up. He could take your same thing and then add something to it. Or he might give you something all the way different, better than you looking over here, and he got you way down the street someplace else. So you always say, you got something better. What is your divine will? Thy will be done. I want what you want for me. I want your stuff, Lord. I want what you got for me. That's what I want. I don't just hook me up. I don't even know what to ask for. Just like you go and say, hook me up. Whatever you think I need to have, do it. And just tell me so I can not miss the blessing, so I can be on point, on time, and show up. I don't want to miss it and properly dress. So that's why you just let go of the will and let him do it. So now here we are talking about free will. We're talking about when free will comes against the will of God. And like I said, free will is just to reveal your intention and see what it doesn't really count. Your free will is not in control. You can, people say positive affirmations and all that good stuff. That works up until the point that it doesn't. It works up until the point that it runs up against the will of God, because his will is he's running everything in here. I said this is important. He's running everything in here. In the earth realm, he is in charge of everything. Don't ever think you're going to sit and say an affirmation long enough. You can say an affirmation. You could bend some tree branches and get some twigs and get some of this and get some of that, but you're not moving nothing. The mover and the shaker is the Lord. He's the only one that can call things into existence that you can't even explain. He is in charge. He's in charge of how the cars line up on the freeway. He knows who's in every single car, who's in front, who's in back. He knows how cars come together. He knows when you're going to see. He can have your eye turn and see something. You wasn't even planning to turn your head that way, and then suddenly your head's just turning and you're looking. He's in charge. I mean, really in charge. He's in charge of your breath. He knows everything that is happening. Now, he's operating on a master scale. He's not operating with just your agenda, because human beings, if you could ask, you would run everything around you. If you could ask, and if you had control, every human being, for the most part, except for the extraordinary, different, uniquely different ones, most human beings would ask for something around what they want. They would design it for themselves, and everything that happened would happen for them exclusively. They would, even if they prayed for something to happen for other people, they would pray the prayer according to their own understanding. So human beings can't pray the right prayers, because you can't conceive outside of the realm of your understanding to call it out of your mouth. But that's why you have to elevate your prayer, and don't pray from your understanding. Don't pray from your resources. Don't pray from your knowledge. Don't pray for nothing having to do with all you know in your lifetime. You always go to the realm above, well above your understanding, and go and pray before the Lord about his stuff on the stuff down here called earth. You pray from the realm that God can do, where you get out the way and say, Holy Spirit, just have your way. Lord, move things around. And you stay in that realm so that you can hear from God and be out of your limited understanding. Be out of the realm of what you don't know anything. You only know what's happening in your own experience, and you forgot half of that. That's how much not knowing we are. We don't know anything. You can't even remember your own life. How are you going to pray for somebody else and pray for realms and pray for things? You don't know how to pray for that stuff. And the older you get, the more fleeting your memory will get. You don't even know what to call out. But if you get in the presence of God and just start saying what he says, saying what you see, saying what he's telling you, the Holy Spirit will have you making complete, comprehensive, penetrating prayers that go into the generation upon generation. You call things that are not as though they were, from the realm of the Lord, not from your understanding. Your will is your free will is something to give up. It is a gift. It's like an offering. It's like a sacrifice. Outside of that, it is of no value, because you're not going to impose your will over the will of God, and he's got a will. He's got the stuff that he's going to do is already done, been talked about, been in place before your little feet even hit the ground, before you hit air. You know, your mother's womb, before you hit air, he had already, your stuff is already done, already in. All you can do is pray for it. There's some wiggle room on expansion and supersizing blessings, and you can change. God does change his mind on occasion, but mainly if you're called, he got purpose for your life, he got you. He got your kids, he got everybody. He got it. And he ultimately will be the intervener to making it happen. So proof of that, we're going to first go to Jonah. Jonah, I don't even know what to say, but Jonah was honest about what he felt, and he had such a relationship with God that he could say. But here you see parent-child conversation. You see parent-child interaction in the top form. You see a child that clearly got instruction, clearly heard from God. Sometimes that's the problem. I don't know what God wants. He can't hear me. I don't know. That's one. Okay, that's the type of problem that you just want to sit there and make sure you get understanding. But this one here, Jonah, he straight up heard. He heard. He heard. And then he said no. I don't even know if another instance in the Bible where somebody belonged to God, knows who he is, heard from God, and then said, no, I'm not going to do it. And not only did he not going to do it, he took his little feet and started walking in the direction to prove that he was not going to do it. And if you've ever had your child, not many children, but it's, when your children say no, you have to admire them for having the courage to say no, but you're going to do it anyway. You don't want to eat this broccoli, but you're going to eat the broccoli. I'll sit here, I'll watch TV, but you're going to eat the broccoli. Whatever we're going to do. But you got to do what you got to do because you're the parent. So we're going to read Jonah. And then after we read Jonah, the second kind of situation was Paul. Paul was very zealous about God. He really loved the Lord. He really loved God, but he did not know Jesus. So he was defending what he thought was the proper terrain. He was trying to do what he thought was the right thing. So he wasn't trying to come against God. He thought the Christians were anti-God, and so he was coming against them with a vengeance. He was doing damage, and that's why he had to have that hard stop. Jonah had a hard stop. Paul had a hard stop and a redirecting, and then they got on the right path. You don't want to be in that situation, but this is to show you that God does. They were operating in their free will until they came against God's will for their life and for the lives of others.